To break all this down for us and the new leadership team in the House of Delegates, my candidate, Terry Kilgore, unfortunately did not win. So I was kind of bummed about that, but Todd won. So, Nick, Freitas, let's just start with your write-in victory, right? I mean, that was okay. So here's what I love. I love when somebody turns lemons into lemonade. That's what my father would say. Something bad would happen to me. He'd say, "Dude," he would say, "Dude," he'd say, "John, okay, you got served up a bag of lemons. Figure out how to turn it into lemonade." And when I was 13 years old, that didn't make any sense to me. Now you're 61, I get it. So you turned lemons into lemonade. You didn't get on the ballot, but what a stunning write-in victory! How did you do that? Get all those write-in votes?
It was a great deal of work. The ground game I think we had was incredible. We knocked on 60,000 doors between our campaign and other groups that were helping us out. We had two very good forums with our opponent. We had actually invited her to a third that she agreed to and later ended up backing out of. But the other thing, too, that I really credit a lot of what we were able to do was on Election Day, we had 100% poll coverage. We had pins with my name spelled on it. We had, very simple instructions for what people needed to do. So I think all of those things combined to create a situation where people showed up at the polls. They were already pretty sure on what they needed to do, and that final last touch with a volunteer, with myself standing at the polls, giving them instructions, giving them something to take in with them, I think that made the difference. And on election night, we were right around 15,000, over 15,000 write-in votes on election night, and by the time some of the boards, threw some of them out, but the vast majority of them, well over 90% in each county, all counted. And so at the end of the day, we didn't just win; we won the write-in by 15 points. So we were really happy with that.
We had a lot of people saying you were going to lose. I had a lot of people saying it was going to be 2 points, and I think I predicted 10 or 12. I was pretty close on that. But Nick, some of them that got thrown out, just for technicality, so we know, the 10% that got thrown out, what was the reason?
Well, I think overall it actually ended up being less than 10%. But usually it had to do with, I wasn't the only write-in. Of course, Mickey Mouse always gets a couple of votes
right
in there. And then it was just kind of drastic misspellings of my name. So they would accept, Freitas as long as it was reasonably close. We had some people that wrote in Freitas, which is actually kind of a German variant. They didn't accept those. We had someone write Nike instead of Nick. They didn't accept that. And again, there's some things like that where if it really came down to it, we probably could have challenged some of those decisions in court.
Right, but it didn't matter.
No, ultimately, when you're 15 points ahead, you don't need to extend the process out anymore. So, but yeah, it was drastic misspellings is generally what got something discounted.
All right, so Nick, let's talk about the leadership team. As you know, I was adamantly for Terry Kilgore from a minority leader. He did not carry the day. Todd Gilbert wins. I'm not a Todd Gilbert fan. I think he's very negative, and I think he needs some positive stuff now. Tell me I'm wrong.
So, look, first and foremost, I wanted to say I really like and respect Terry Kilgore. He's been there a long time. I think everyone respects Terry. We don't always agree on policy,
right?
But again, I respect him, and I do think that regardless of whether or not he's in a formal leadership role, Terry is still going to be someone that everyone in the caucus discusses things with and gets his opinion on because he is so well respected. I'm very happy to have Todd Gilbert as our minority leader because I think going forward, obviously being in the minority is significantly different. And one of the biggest things that you do within the minority is you will find areas where you can work together. I mean, we did that in the majority. We'll continue to do it in the minority. But you also have to show contrast. And a lot of what this particular Democrat leadership is looking to pass is not what, they keep talking, this is the first time this has happened since the early 90s. Well, very, very different Democrat leadership in the early 90s compared to what's going on right now. And we are going to need someone that is going to be a powerful voice on the floor to be able to, draw out that contrast, show what the unintended consequences of their legislation is actually going to be. And I think Todd is very good at that. I think one of the things that's also very important when you're talking about being in the minority is having a good understanding of the rules. because there's a lot of things the majority can't do to you. Now, we were very big on things like proportional representation on committees. We wanted to make sure that the rules were easy to understand and fair. But if a majority wants to be sneaky about this, they can be. And so having someone that has been intimately involved in writing rules is also going to be very important. I think Todd's played a critical role on that. But ultimately what this comes down to is we're going to be in a fight because, as you mentioned earlier, Alfonso Lopez, they're not interested in maintaining the sort of Virginia that we've fought to build over the last couple of decades, one where we're number one in business, one where we have a good education system, one where, we've tried to fix, important issues with respect to everything from criminal justice reform to transportation, et cetera. They're looking to fundamentally change Virginia. And that is going to require leadership that understands how to fight that from the minority. And I think Todd will do a very good job on that. I'm very excited about Kathy Byron moving into leadership. She's another person that's been greatly respected in the caucus, has always played kind of a leadership role behind the scenes, and now having her at the forefront, I think is going to be great. And then Jay Leftwich, I think, is going to be a great minority whip. Jay's someone that, again, everybody respects. He's someone that understands legislation, and one of the things you want out of a good whip is someone that can stand up there and actually explain not only the intention of a particular piece of legislation, but you can explain potential unintended consequences. You can inform the caucus so they can actually make a good decision. So I'm excited about our leadership team.
So you have no one in the leadership team that ran a competitive race, right? Gilbert gets a bajillion votes, Shenandoah Valley, whatever. Kathy Byron has no meaningful opposition, and Leftwich hasn't had a competitive race since he got there. So you got three people trying to get, hopefully you're going to try to get the majority back in 2021. And I'm just asking questions, Nick. I'm not challenging who you voted for, okay? Just asking questions on behalf of my listeners. So you have a leadership team in the minority with not a single person who ran a competitive race. How does that work?
Well, I mean, again, I would say that I don't think Terry Kilgore even had an opponent. So we wouldn't be in a different situation with respect to that had Terry gotten the House Minority Leadership position. But each one of those people, again, has been there a while. They've worked. Todd has worked very, very closely with people that were running in competitive districts. And if you look at the sort of energy and time that we put into those delegates in order to try to help them out and try to help them keep their seats, we unfortunately weren't able to keep all of them. But we were able to keep some. We're all very thrilled that Roxanne Robinson is coming back to the General Assembly. So I don't think anybody is confused by the fact that we have to operate as a team down there, and that we understand that various districts and competitive districts have different concerns, sometimes than those of us who are in safer ones. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. We all understand that. But again, by the same token, we're not in control anymore. We don't have the authority to pass legislation the way that the majority does. And I can't emphasize this enough. We have to have a leadership team, and we as a caucus have to operate unified, because there's going to be a whole lot of things coming down that I would classify as drastic overreach. There's a lot of things within this new Democratic agenda that I think a lot of people, when they showed up to vote for their delegate, they weren't fully aware of everything that they're actually looking to do when it comes to getting rid of things like right to work, when it comes to drastically increasing the minimum wage, when it comes to, some of the gun legislation that they're looking at, when it comes to some of the other policies that they're looking at, tax increases. There's been a lot. I want to give you a quick example, John, if I could. I had there was a bill last year. I won't go into the details of it, but I explained to a member of the press on why I oppose this bill. And I said, well, look, I think that it has good intentions, but the problem is that it violates due process of law, it violates privacy, and so I didn't vote for it. And the way the press reported on that bill, after I explained it, was Delegate Freitas vehemently opposes suicide prevention bill. Now, that is a complete misrepresentation of what the bill actually did and my position. And the press has been doing this for the Democrats a lot since they've been the minority. Well, now these bills are actually going to pass, and there's going to be consequences for those bills. And I think a lot of people are going to wake up to find that not only were the Democrats not being completely honest about everything that they wanted to do, but the press was giving them cover for it. And so I think there is going to be some buyer's remorse over the next couple of years. But we have to be able to be standing there showing the contrast and actually explaining, why we'd oppose these bills in the past and the consequences it's going to have on everyday Virginians when they actually go into effect.
All right, so we're with Nick Freitas. He got reelected as a write-in candidate because he didn't get on the ballot. He's going back to the General Assembly. He's also potentially evaluating a run for Congress in 2020 against Abigail Spanberger. That decision will be coming later. Right now, though, Nick, I want to focus on the General Assembly, of which you'll be there come January of 2020. And you mentioned overreach. Give me the top three classic overreaches you think the Democrats are going to go to town with. And remember, again, I'm going to get back to Alfonso Lopez, your colleague in Northern Virginia, Democrat, who said first 72 hours is going to be a breathtaking change for Virginia. We've been waiting to do this 50 years. It's going to be done in 3 days. Top three game changers that the Dems are trying to do. What are they?
I think on economics, it's going to be a real effort to attack and undermine right-to-work laws. I think it's going to be an attempt to, again, drastically increase minimum wage. And then, on the Virginia being the number one place to do business, I think that goes away because of those things. Tax increases. I think you're going to see a lot of them. I think it's going to be on everything from plastic bags to Netflix to a number of other things that you're going to see drastic tax increases that are going to hit people, and they're not going to be happy about it. And then I think one of the other ones, too, that is going to hit right away is going to be gun legislation. So a lot of things that they've been calling, quote, common sense gun legislation. Now they've even dipped into talking about confiscation. They've dipped into ending what would essentially be any sort of youth hunting. You know, these are the sort of things that I think they're going to have a hard time pulling the reins back on after they've been, promising certain people this in district. They have new freshman Democrats that are just adamant about pushing as far a progressive agenda as they possibly can. So I would say the economic one, the gun one, and then the taxes. I think those are the three areas where they are going to engage in drastic overreach fairly quickly.
Okay. Questionable to see whether you can marshal the votes to defeat any of those. I doubt it. I think all of those pass, especially with the 55 to 45 majority they have. I know Saslow in the Senate, who's on at 835, the Godfather, says he's not going to back a repeal of right to work. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure where he is on taxes. You got Joe Morrissey, who is opposed in the Senate with the Republicans, opposed to stopping right to work, to changing that, and opposed to changing the tax increase, and he's pro-life. So you got one vote there on the Democratic side. Morrissey's going to block all of those based on what he said. So really that leaves Dick, because Fairfax is the tiebreaker on all three of those. So if he can get Dick on two of the three, he can stop them. If you go 0 for 3, they're all going to pass. You can't stop them. And the governor already said he'll sign it. So you guys are kind of screwed. Let's get to that's why, look, your two best friends in the Senate are Joe Morrissey and Dick Saslow. That's it. That's your two best pals, man. All right, let's get to one Virginia. Let's get to one Virginia 2021. Redistricting, nonpartisan. It passed overwhelmingly in the House in 2019. Only got 13 no votes. One Republican no vote. That was Lee Ware. I assume he'll vote no again. That leaves you guys. You need like 6 Democrats to vote in favor of this to pass it, right? Or 7. So you've got Schuyler and maybe another one. How are you going to get there?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, one of the big things that we've seen that's, Democrats have been pushing for redistricting reform. And this is a drumbeat that usually comes up when somebody's in the minority. And oftentimes, a lot of times goes away once they're in the majority, because now they have the ability to draw the lines, and they realize they don't want to lose that power. My biggest problem with some of the Virginia 2021 suggestions were this whole idea of we can have a completely nonpartisan board draw our lines. And my argument was always there's no such thing as a nonpartisan board, because depending on who they're appointed by, that's going to affect. And so I think we actually came up with a good compromise that they ended up supporting, and it was the idea that we're going to have a very transparent process, so we know what the reasoning is with respect to how lines are drawn. The legislature is still going to be involved, but I think we passed some very meaningful reforms in that. I believe that was Mark Cole's bill. So now it's about holding them accountable to say that, okay, you wanted this. We actually, when we were in the majority, we actually provided a compromise bill that would achieve a lot of the objectives that both sides have been talking about. If they now decide to go back and say don't want it, okay, well, now we know what this was. You wanted to complain about redistricting reform when you were in the minority, but now you're in the majority, you get the right to draw the lines. You're not so keen on it. So I think that's going to be, it's holding people to account based off of their previous statements, their previous positions, and ensuring, again, that we do have a good compromise bill. And I think the one that we passed last year clearly was. I mean, you saw that reflected in the votes in the House. So, again, it's just holding people accountable. And also, to some degree, hoping that the press will actually do their job on this one, right? I don't worry about you, John, but I do worry about a lot of other people out there that, they give these guys a pass when they say one thing, and then when they decide to change their mind, they just don't report on it. And it's another reason why you have to have a strong leadership team that is willing to go out and talk to the press and also hold them to account on the floor, because all of our floor debates, all of our committee debates, they're all recorded votes, and they're videotaped. So we need to be able to getting those things out to show what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Well, Nick, we're going to be live at the House at the General Assembly on the radio live 5 days a week in Joe Morrissey's office again. I'm telling you, dude, he's going to be your best friend. John Fredericks Radio. Anything goes, man. I mean, anything. Send him a box of chocolates. He's got a sweet tooth. John Fredericks Radio Network. Thank you, Nick. Always good to have you on. You inspire such confidence, I mean, I was kind of down when I got up today because I didn't like the leadership vote, but you're very inspiring, and you got to believe, Nick. I believe in you, and I thank you for being on. I take to heart everything you say. Thank you.